Well, so I hope the morning goes well. This is a nice group. Actually, I love these presentations because there's always nuances of what I'm thinking about show up that are kind of neat, surprise. There's something that comes out of the relationship that builds between us that opens up new territory for all of us. And in a sense, that's the theme of the talk. It's the visionary consciousness that it's inspiring to hear the word visionary. And then immediately our preconceptions of it grab hold of it, and we do different things with it. Like, parse it out to somebody who walks around and runs into walls, to somebody with special gifts. But it's really quite natural. It's imagination, in a sense. So when we're oriented inside in a certain way, well, it plugs into whatever we're oriented to. So if you're oriented to your addictions, your visionary practice goes to work in reinforcing that reality, where you live out your relationship to your addiction and creates a world around it, and it gives you elaborations on that world of addiction. So it's always working, and so we have plenty of practice. If you have and so often in our life we something happens, it was embarrassing, we judge ourselves, and so that judgment's sitting back there unconscious, producing visions that bring upon you the consequence of your judgment in some form or another. So the neat thing about that is that all along we've been practicing and building up this visionary muscle in these little compartmentalized ways. So as we take apart our belief systems and adjust it so it's more, resonant with our essence, with the loving of our essence, it's more resonant with that. All we're doing is developing a proper lens. We already have the practice of being a visionary. So through the new lens, we not only see more of what's there, but we see beyond what's there. Because in the levels of our consciousness, each one has a particular domain that it participates in. And so that our vision goes out on that level to embrace it, and to explore it, and to use it as a perspective to look at life. I think one of the simplest ways to kind of modify it right off is, when using your imagination. So, we don't have imagination. In fact, we had to imagine getting here this morning, or we never would have made it. If you hadn't had some vision of being in this room this morning, likely you'd have done something else. Because the vision forms in these deeper implicate levels, these deeper numinous levels, and as it forms there, it starts to collect corresponding connections and energy, so that what's in the vision can come about physically. So it's also very important to be connected to Earth. So we're too disconnected for some reason, either because our traumas made this a hostile place, or we had to separate from, or we're paranoid about the environment. Watch your paranoia about. Paranoia just means that you've exaggerated the fears, or they're unfounded. There's the other kinds of genuine concerns about what's going on in the world. you keep those because you need those to activate your vision. So we're not saying that there's not real things happening that are challenging. It's just that when you become paranoid, you attach to it and obsess, and then you start your visionary consciousness begins to play on the world to create that reality, or confine your perception to only seeing those things that reinforce your paranoia. So it's a limiting action. It's really kind of amazing. We're lined up in such a way that and we'll play into this more as we go along, because it's such a subtle and powerful thing to begin to really become familiar with what your consciousness is. I know in life, as we develop and deal with the physical world and fall down and bruise ourselves and run into things and have to deal with other people and the environment, we get pretty connected in our beliefs and our perception to our physical body, and we lose sight of all the other things the physical body does. And organize our belief system around, well, this is me, this is, and we organize life as it reflects back to that, and we go along with that self-concept that's can be pretty bound to our physical body. Fortunately for now, maybe this always won't be necessary. As we get older, it begins to wear out or get ugly, and then we can think about other things. See, but we do, or think about too much about our health and get trapped in that. So in reflecting, there's the eternal part. There's eternal aspects of ourselves that we need to begin to collaborate with as a priority. Just the simple act of sitting and being present and sensing into that. Well, there's two eternal connections that we operate through. One's the vertical one, and it transcends the reflected universe, and the other one in the heart that goes out and reflects and holds the reflected universe, and essentially holds it loving. And the vertical one can transcend that and replenish the loving, and bring something new to a creation that's already complete. So just by beginning to spend time sensing that, of course, we usually start out by imagining that, what that must be like. What's that like? And a lot of times in our meditation, we'll visualize a column of light that goes through the center of our body and connects heaven and earth, and persist in that until you feel a shift. Oftentimes you'll feel nothing for a while, so you think, well, maybe I'm not set up that way. Well, that's the only way you're set up. So if you persist, it begins to awaken something. And that changes as soon as you do that, it changes the lens. You have a different relationship, not only to your sense of self, but a different relationship to what reflects back to you from life. Because as soon as you start awakening, not only are you seeing what light reflects off of, in other words, all the stuff with electrical charge to it, you not only see that, but then because of this beginning awakening, you're also restoring another level of vision, which looks back at you through creation. is an aspect of yourself. So not only are you seeing what's there in reflected light, but you're also seeing through it back to yourself. So that sets up a quality of vibration in the lens of yourself, in which you're not only can engage life more courageously, but you also have the backstory of life. You can look from behind the scene back at yourself. There's in the history of humanity, there's been a lot of things happen that have served to help us evolve and train this capacity. It's what is always brought forward. So like if there's an extinction event, like comet hits the planet and puts out the lights for a few years, and that's challenging. Or somebody remembers that. Or a drought comes along. Like one of the things that shifted the consciousness of humanity in Africa was there's a big drought. Everybody moved to the coast. I don't know if living on the coast inspires you more or not. Maybe it's eating the fish. I don't know. But that triggered some kind of shift. So I guess that's what so in this evolution, there's let's say our organism from early on has had all the stuff we have now, except it's evolved somehow at the same time. And in this process of dealing with bigger challenges and little challenges, evolves the organism, evolved not just the physical one, but the subtle one, the etheric one. So it evolves the dimensions of ourself that are light, not reflected, but the energy, like the prana, the etheric levels, the energy bodies of ourselves. They have a framework where everything is present. It's like this body has a framework of everything that's present, but it's refined and honed and tuned through this process of challenge and adaptation. A simple form of that is something happens during the day and you think about it and then you decide something. That's a simple form. We do that automatically a lot. A big form is there's a big earthquake and destroys the city and the water supply and we have to go live in the woods for a while. That's a bigger challenge. You have to be a little more creative with that one. But see, it's the same thing. You're making up new stuff based on what happened. You drive down your favorite route to work and they tear up the street to fix a sewer and you have to go a new route. That changes your reality. So believe it or not, there's a level of it that's out sneaking around out there, promoting events that are going to wake you up. Because it has to come out of our volition and our waking up. So there's part of us that's plotting to do that. So probably if you're paranoid, it's just you stalking yourself, trying to set up situations that are going to wake you up or strengthen you or get you over yourself. See, so trust that. If you have the paranoia, just don't identify with it. Just trust that it's an ally, and it is stalking you. And following you over where you go and setting things up. This is where synchronicity comes in. Also, there's good things like people you meet, chance opportunities that are in your favor. Those seem random, but they're not. And hopefully as we go along, you'll get a sense of this wholeness working together. I call it synchronous creativity. In other words, it's all going on at once. So we get a sense of ourself, we'll get a sense of how we're really playing in this interrelated fields of energy that are in constant motion and constantly talking to each other and arranging your day. And it just goes up or down depending on your attitude. Because every time you say if you live in fear, that creates an algorithm, it creates a formula that puts that into the whole frequency. If you're living in your love and your joy, it puts that frequency in. And this doesn't mean you don't have your mood swings, but it means that standing behind that, you're awake to the real center of your person. And so the mood swings become, just entertainment, essentially. But also the mood swings are essential. They also not only swing because of your attitude or your health, but they also swing according to the what's going on in life, in the field of life. So some of your mood swings have nothing to do with you other than you're in that environment and it's swinging. See? So if you wake up with a foreboding some morning, I check the news instead of your own self to see what to fix. Like, well, see what's going on in the world. Is there something that's swinging the valence of creation to one side or the other that day? There's a rudimentary aspect of this visionary ability that really kind of has to do with the physical self, the basic self. Is there's an aspect of ourselves that's always going out into the physical world and checking things out. If you can pay attention, if you're waking up in your body to feel the shifts in sensation and the shifts in mood and the shifts in feelings, when you can make a distinction between the shifting energies and your sense of yourself, your sense of your loving, you can gauge that environment. And that's pretty basic. We're doing that all the time. And so the response is adjusting your loving in relationship to it, not trying to adjust the field. Because that's out there, and it's a lot to control. And besides, it's not your job. Something's already in control. And it's this universal intelligence that's always conscious in a way. So when something disrupts, and a challenge comes along, this aspect of ourself, I'll call it basic self, goes out. And there's this great term I like, it's stochastic. Stochastic. So it's just stochastically reads the environment. What's that mean is that it's checking everything. We got a new dog. It's a hound, some kind. And it's a pup, and it's always checking stuff. Sniffing here, You ever have a hound dog? It's always checking stuff and gets. Well, that's what this energy does. That's what this puppy energy, and it's going out. It's always looking for opportunity. In this case, food. But so it's always looking for opportunity. So when a challenge comes up, you're already out there checking for ways to go. And at some point, it finds one that's the way you need to go. Well, so if you're busy worrying or being afraid or trying to control things or figure things out or make up stuff, you'll miss that. But if in the face of the challenge you can become calm and start, sometimes you can use your breathing, start remembering that connection. You'll find it's like reading, reading textures with touch, with your eyes closed. It might be good practice. This will come to your awareness, and then you'll look in that direction, and that'll start to build a connection, and then it becomes conscious. So this is built in, and for us. So that's it's kind of a rudimentary visionary consciousness. Well, that's going on in all the levels. So it doesn't take much to go up within yourself and find a level of vision that kind of steps out of time, out of the time-space setup, where it looks from a perspective of a synchronous creation, where the past and the present are negotiating, and the past and the future are negotiating. See, in the same stochastic way, where they're just checking the options. So the past and the future are checking options with each other to bring about a phenomenon in the moment that changes the lens of your reality so you can arrive at the place you want to be. Does that make sense? Maybe sit with that a moment. So the past and the future, having a conversation to develop the best way for you in the moment to, notice I didn't say travel to or get to, I said arrive in the place that you want to be. So the way to start seeing that go on is the first step is to, when you imagine something, also observe yourself imagining. Like you're imagining, like baking a cake or decorating a tree or writing a paper or applying for a job or something, but you're imagining. See? So we usually think that's it, right? And sometimes it's quite kind of a high you get involved in our imagination, but then practice observing your imagination. This is what Einstein used to do in his thought experiments. He'd set up an experiment in his vision, and then he'd watch it, and was observing his imagination. Tesla was even faster than that when he would just look at the invention and then it would be full blown, and he didn't have to go through all that, and he just built it physically. So, well, that's that ability to observe your imagination. See, so you can imagine anything like, this would be interesting. Imagine a stuffed animal you had when you were 4 years old. See, imagine yourself with that stuffed animal. Now watch yourself imagining that. Watch that imagining. Okay. Feel that subtle shift in your presence. See, this also puts you in a position to be therapeutic to your past. As soon as you do that, you can, from your self of now, bring the loving you wanted then, or the answer you wanted then. See, because it's simultaneous, it's synchronous. So you appreciate therapy is you renegotiate your past to have a different present and to change your options for the future. you see people nodding their heads. That sounds cool, but I don't have the foggiest idea what he's talking about. See, that's the fog is helpful because it's just a symptom of your brain shutting down, so your mind can work. See, the brain in its evolutionary prowess has been told it's really something incredible, and it's a computer, but it takes on the sense of who we are. See, so we wake up beyond that, and then the brain can relax, and we can venture out on our vision. So, well, it brings me back to something I wanted to, that came up to talk about. There's this aspect of our soulness that's evolving through the physical body, evolving the physical body. And so there's and you'll hear more about this in the Saturday program, a lot about it, where the body is, where our consciousness is an epigenetic phenomenon of our physical evolution. And there is an aspect of that, like the little puppy dog that goes out and looks, that's an aspect of your physical evolution, and an intelligence that evolved from your physical evolution. But it learned that from a consciousness that's not a result of your physical evolution. So the other viewpoint is that the physical development of our physical organism develops as an epigenetic phenomenon to our consciousness. So this is fascinating that, well, there's something about consciousness, and so this is visionary consciousness, so there's some element of humanity, or maybe even us in particular, that's observing itself evolve a body. That's another aspect of itself is evolving through. See, and they work together to create whatever this personality is here. The challenge is to be at peace with the functions, the relative functions. Like one of the essential functions of your body is to not only give you a vehicle to move in a kind of electromagnetic three-dimensional world and deal with it well. So it has that quality where and deal with the sequence, cause and effect, to work with learning that. Whereas in a higher state, you just stay in the consciousness you're in. There's no movement. There's no movement there in the same way. So there's a chance to run things out and explore them. So the body's a vehicle which that can happen through, and which creation can experience itself through. But another thing it does is it anchors an energy. See, it anchors this. So we have this earth construct we're living on, and we're anchored here. And everybody's probably somewhat familiar with the chakras, and there's an energy that flows up from that. And then there's an energy that flows down from above, and they interact through this body. And the better our anchor with earth, the more creative and powerful we are here, the more we can manifest things here. If you don't really anchor into the body and engage it. And sometimes that's uncomfortable, because this is, you can get tossed around a bit here. It's hard. Sometimes it hurts, and sometimes it struggles. So we say, well, maybe I want to step back from life instead of really engaging it. But that's essential for see, so your visionary consciousness without your practical anchoring into earth it can be a genius, but can't do much with it. See, there was in our evolution, science. We start out with these great, clear religious truths like with Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad. They were really clear, and even in the Islamic world, the science flourished before that got messed up. You see, the visionary consciousness was clear, so it didn't make stuff up that wasn't true. But as time goes on and the life closes in on people, and they get a little separate from that, they get frightened and make stuff up, and it becomes political. And so people were making up stuff about the nature of reality that just wasn't true. So the scientific method came along and started, well, let's be rigorous, let's sort this out and run these tests and check and see what the effect is, and look at the before and after and see if the intervening thing really did anything, see? And that started cleaning up that lens a bit so that we can check things out. And of course that's going to be a key to your visions, is you have to check them out practically. And in this tangible world, you can see the effect of things. And so you can check them out, because when they're in the virtual field, they can float around a bit, unless you're really disciplined. And trust you will be able to do that as time goes on. Evidently Tesla could, he just would see it and do it. So this ability to check things out. And then science develops its own narrative and gets closed in and gets so fascinated with the physicalness of things that it thinks that consciousness is an epigenesis of the physical brain. And so some of that's true, but not the whole, not most of the picture, you see. So they miss what's going on. They miss what occurs electrically here in this reflected world is in a context of a deeper energy that holds it and is the source of it. I think of the scientist, probably David Bohm, created the best model for that, how this physical reality unfolds from this implicate one. And so, all causation comes from this implicate or akashic field. He didn't call it that, he just called it energy field to come about. So no cause is local. Your body would not have got its marching orders to move your camp here without your higher consciousness having the vision to be here. So that informs the body to walk over here. See, so it looks like, well, no, that caused me to be here. No, something caused your body to move your location here, so you could anchor your reality here instead of where you were. See? And this gets demonstrated quite quickly, because as we all settled in here and got present, you could feel the energy go up in the room. Well, why did it do that? Because you anchored here and formed accepting expectation without a lot of projections. And this started this field of energy growing. In other words, what was in the numinous field could readily translate through our bodies into the 3D field. So this consciousness is a lens to translate what's in the numinous field into a physical field, into a physical, tangible reality, we might say. The power of that comes in how well kept your lens is. So that's where all of our work has gone, like resolving our traumas, or cleaning up our beliefs, self-forgiveness, meditating, learning how to feel what's going on in our space, choosing good energy over bad energy. What kind of environments you place yourself in, what kind of substances you put in your body, your attitude, your spiritual practices, your cosmology of the universe. All these go into strengthening, clarifying this lens of your presence, this lens of your physical presentation. And as you do that, the capacity to take vision and bring it into manifestation, the ability to translate the aspects of yourself on these greater levels into this body and into hell is greatly enhanced. I'm just waiting for everybody to catch up. It's not an effort. I'm not doing questions right now. It's not an effort. It's a being present and watching it catch up. How do you watch it catch up? Well, someone's visionary. Someone's just a feeling in your body. Someone's the sense around you. Hope everybody can just sense the field around them, because then you know if somebody stands next to you and you want to move away, you know you can do that. You know you need to do that. Or somebody comes along you want to get closer to. I'd check that out with them, though, before you get too close. So that internal intelligence can be reading all this stuff and assimilating it inside. And it really comes in, it moves like this, it assimilates, and then moves into the center, and then goes back out. And so sometimes that takes a moment to collect all of it and play it through your infinite self and back out through your temporal self, your time-bound self. Yeah, picking up on that. So let's just take a little inward time, and then we'll take a little break, and we'll come back to it. So if you just close your eyes, and there's no rush here, so well, at noon there will be, but not now. So and just start observing your body, your breathing, feet on the floor, space around you, the pressure where you're sitting. Maybe wiggle your toes and connect with the floor a bit. And just notice that. And this begins a process. It's much like when we sleep at night, our body resets itself in this way. So in a sense, we're just resetting ourselves. And sometimes it's hard to tell whether you're observing or imagining, but with your imagination, play like you're observing this flow of energy. So you see maybe just use the image of a golden thread that goes, starts somewhere above you and goes to the top of your head, through your pituitary, through your heart, through your coccyx out into the earth. And then as you watch it, imagine that it begins to change in its configuration and begins to look like a rotation of energy from above and a counter rotation from below. And don't try to make it happen, just to watch it happen. Watch yourself imagine it happen. And see what that changes in your sense of your cellular nature and in your body. And eventually it expands so that your body's sitting inside of that vortex. And when it does that, everything is, it's tuning up your internal dimensional communication between the different levels of your consciousness and the cells of your body. And repairing any nicks in it, any disturbances, any breaks, any corrosions, waking up areas that may have been not used and they atrophy. Just that process. And so you can also then amplify that with your breathing, the magnetic action of your breathing, where you breathe in from above and below into your heart, out into your space. And then you breathe in from your space into your vertical alignment and through your heart. You just pay attention to that. And observe it happening, not make it happen. And at some point, a stillness starts to set in. And that's I call it a gateway stillness. It's not the end place, it's the beginning place, because it's a symptom of being present. And we're present, it's like the cosmos can begin to breathe through us. So in that silence that starts to come in, you open up into that. Sense that the cosmos is breathing through you. The wholeness is breathing through you. And so as soon as you do this, it's like you become visible through all creation. And so you become an active participant. In your essence and in your presence. And this presents you with I was going to say rare opportunity, but it's more like a rarefied opportunity. Because in this orientation, all you have to do is bring an imbalanced conscious and then observe how it's resolved. Sometimes it'll just dissolve, or you'll see something change, you'll feel a warmth in your body, or you'll feel a prompt to forgive yourself for the judgment. And if there's perhaps you've appointed an agency of shame to protect a belief or a judgment. And you can have a conversation with it in this place that's transformational instead of arguing or fighting or giving over or getting locked into. And in the dialogue, the shame progresses into balance. So there's an attitude here of, a real key here is to use everything in my life to transform myself into loving. So anything want to show up that I tucked away that is an opportunity to transform myself into loving, in contrast to, hate, vengeance, self-pity, victimization. Those are the other options. So you have a choice. But the one that leads to the heartland, leads you home, and builds the lens and magnifies your presence and strengthens your connection into the transcendent fields of consciousness. This is the way to use life to do that. So in our presence, in our current moment, we're participating in this synchronous dialogue. Just let go of any efforting for the moment and just pay attention to whatever is present. As we put these things in motion now, through invitation and intention, you can just watch how they play out inside of you. And if you feel particularly courageous, you might direct inside that, take me into a place I haven't been before. And at first you might think that's maybe a dark place in the underworld, but you may be quite surprised that it just takes you into the heart of God. So, when you're ready, just open your eyes and we'll take a break. Anybody have any corrections, additions, or questions? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about using shame as an agent to hold beliefs?
Well, yeah. See, say you decide something like I'm unworthy, and that's so that forms, and the way we understand it actually creates a thought form, and it's an algorithm, and it informs how this energy goes through. And so you adjust your field, and that's how that field contacts the greater field, and also affects how you connect with higher consciousness. So you can tell that would be limiting. And so that's challenging enough. But then if you also decide to be ashamed, be ashamed from that, because you have that belief, that holds it. It becomes a protector of the belief. So then you have to get to your shame to get to the belief. See? So shame can hold all kinds of judgments against yourself, or viewpoints or beliefs that affect you. Because it says essentially that my core is, that's what I'm at my core. We have this, I am consciousness in language, right? So I am shame. See, so that sets a law in your consciousness. That once the coding is set, everything has to obey the law. See? So you'll even start collaborating with other people to keep your shame intact and your shame-based beliefs intact. See, so shame becomes a foundation, and then you have shame-based beliefs. So it's always good to check what your foundation is for your cosmology, because that affects your lens and how not only how you see life, but how life sees you. See, so you're actually recruiting people to see you in a shameful way, or to help you build more energy on your shame.
Yep.
See, so I need some more shaming people in my life. So that's how it relates.
How do you turn that into an ally then? So
Well, first thing you do is you recognize the splendid job of creation you've done. I have this visionary great vision to be a shame-based person. And wow, here it is.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of skill. See, maybe I should change the content, but I have the skill of how to take. See, it's very easy. Once you do a love-based reality, you have the same skill. So not to worry. You just have to change the formula a bit. Have to tweak it a bit. So these jetbits they're always referenced to the center I was talking about, this loving. They're always referenced to that. So they're they're constellated around you. We look kind of like a Christmas tree, I guess. So what do you want? Pretty little ornaments, or you want cold? It's your choice. You're Santa Claus. See, you're Santa Claus, and you've been taking notes of whether you've been naughty or nice. So you have to talk to your Santa Claus. Anyway, so I got kind of sidetracked there. Let me see. So the reference to the loving. See, so you've affronted yourself. You decided, I am this, instead of I am this. Instead of I am this loving, I am this bridge between heaven and earth, I'm this divine being. I live eternally, instead of I'm that. No, I'm this limited little, crippled, shameful, no good, sewer-worthy person. See, make it heavy enough to get the contrast. Yeah, so that's in relation to loving. So once you realize that, you start to wake up over here, and you have your authority back. So you do. I forgive myself for believing I'm this shameful, sewer-worthy person, just because my life taught me that. See. Okay. And that begins an action going, where it informs your survival instinct, your basic self. We're changing the law. And it also invites your higher self in. See, the spirit won't inflict. It's unconditional loving. It's in that order of being. So it won't inflict, so it has to be invited. Once it's invited, it's very powerful. You see. So that comes in and starts to unravel this. See, and then often when I'm working with self-forgiveness, people just simply, while they're paying attention, while they're observing their self-forgiveness, they'll take a deep breath and exhale. It clicks you right back in your center, and this just goes back to basic energy. And you're free of it. You pulled your identity out of it, so it can no longer exist. See, the shame-based belief can only exist because you've invested your identity in it. And once you withdraw that, it has no life. And sometimes your instincts will kick in and say, no, you'll die if you change that belief. See, because it's instinctual. This is you've identified with it. So you have to sometimes do a little work to feel safe with yourself, or to make safety with yourself. after you do feel those, the body feels so great, it's going to like, just do some more. See, once you get it, you get tied into that energy, your body will want more forgiveness. Okay. Because it feels, it's like, getting sweets or something. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah. You feel like that's moving, people got hold of that one, that's moving around the room. Yeah.
It's addicting.
I
said it's addicting.
I didn't hear you.
Just kidding.
I know, but I didn't get the joke. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I said it's addicting. Forgiveness.
Yeah, it is.
Sweetness is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I read the Course in Miracles, and the voice, which is so pure, it says you have to pray, oh Heavenly Father, oh Lord, oh Great Spirit, oh Life, may all beings be blessed, may all beings be happy, all beings without exception. That means even if somebody on the tennis court hates me, I have to send loving kindness to that person. You know, all beings without exception. So if somebody, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's unconditional love. Love's the measure. And so that's what keeps things together.
I know, because if the Lord can love unconditionally, then we have to love unconditionally.
Yeah, so that's why our forgiveness is so powerful, because we're the one that created the distortion and separation.
I know, and it's just so beautiful to forgive and to let go. As you said, it's...
I always like to call on her because she always has answers instead of questions. You had your hand up?
Yeah, there was a word you used earlier, like stochastic, or...
Yeah, I hear that really clear in my head. Sometimes I have trouble. Stochastic.
It is stochastic.
What?
Stochastic.
Can you spell it exactly?
No. Anybody know how to spell this? You Google it. Stochastic. Yeah, it's a sociological term. But anyway, you send out different patterns to get one that works. So when there's a crisis, or you run into an obstacle, there's an instinct that goes out and checks for options. And so that's how organisms respond to adapting to change or create change in the face of a challenge. Is they just kind of random until they find the right one. And then they go with that. These are comments, yeah.
You suggested that we go back in time and look at the stuffed animals in our lives. I felt the whole room kind of go into a more profound place of presence for me.
Yeah, people were busy.
But I wondered about two things. The fact that we were all looking at a defined object that existed in the past and that was different for each of us. And yet we moved into a more unified consciousness.
Yeah, because they're all doing it together.
Oh.
We're all participating in an activity in acceptance of each other. So it was unified sync, which was a resonance to it. Just like when we do a guided meditation, everybody's following the same, well, like you said, I had you follow an image. See, so everybody's doing the same thing, which was more important than the image I was presenting.
And I wondered about that, because you were directing us to look toward a concrete past image that existed in our experience. And I was wondering then when you talked about Einstein and Tesla, like as we're looking at envisioning something that is not yet in manifested form in the physical world.
Yeah, it's not tangible yet.
Yes, if we...
It's a different form
if you were
of
to
math.
direct us collectively to look at that, and yet each of us would be envisioning something a little bit different.
Yeah, but you're all envisioning something.
But it hasn't existed yet. Is there a difference in the level, in the quality of energy that comes collectively?
We already answered your question. when we were all doing that, you experienced it one way. And when you opened your eyes, you didn't see a teddy bear on the floor. Because it wasn't about that. Besides, it was using a concrete image then. See, it was a concrete. It had touch. It had slobber on it, so it had smell. You know, it had all kinds of qualities. Maybe, you know, you spilled something on it. It had texture. See, so to this physical body, it has that memory. It has a tactile memory. It's a hologram. Okay. So it exists tangibly in that form, in your psyche. Okay. So when we go back and look at it in that way, and the switch is observing ourselves, imagining it. Sometimes I have a person imagine themselves of now in that space with their self of them, just to reinforce that relationship. See, so it still exists tangibly on a psychic level, and it's still informing your reality based on what you decided at that time. And so as soon as you take either your essence or your self of now into that space with it, it changes the formula. You're no longer abandoned back there with your disappointing thoughts about yourself or your stuffed animal or how sad you are. On the other hand, you might be reminded of how joyous you were, and that's the shift. Your joyous self of the past informs your sad self of the present. Either way, you break down the separation. It becomes integrated. In other words, there's no longer a stuck place here, and it's not only a place here and a place there, if they're merged. So you break down the separation, or dissolve the separation.
When you were speaking of Tesla and Einstein, imagining something that hadn't yet taken form.
Yeah, they're creating.
Yes. If you were to say to us, could we all imagine how we could fly out the door?
Yeah, have you ever planned a vacation?
Pardon me?
You ever planned a vacation?
Yes.
And you imagine it in your head, right? And then you go back and you imagine in your head again and see what you notice so you can make plans and take care of contingencies. That's the same thing Einstein was doing.
Well, I'm wondering about the collective effect of us all imagining something.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy, doesn't it? You mean two people trying to imagine the same thing?
Well, for all planning if you tell us to all plan our vacation at the same time in this room, and where our consciousness goes as well.
So what's your curiosity? It's going to be supportive.
What happens?
Since we're all doing the same thing, everybody's going to be supporting everybody else. So it's going to have amplification. It's still going to be particular to you.
Okay. And yet, the feeling in the room, or the energy field that's created collectively, is amplified.
Yeah, it amplifies it and provides resource.
It has to do with this quality of the imagining or witnessing.
Yeah, it helps everybody do it better.
She doesn't feel her questions yet.
She didn't want it answered. Yeah.
I'm interested in trying to describe the change in the energy field collectively that's present.
Well, it's none of your business. You don't get to manage them. And when you give that up, you'll get more centered, and that'll be in the same frequency that's in their center, and you look out through them at what they're doing. The way you're doing it, you can't do it. You have to go to the unconditional loving to do it. But we're all one. Then there's always permission, and you can see their viewpoint. Otherwise, you just get your projection at their viewpoint. See, when you try to get what they're going on with them, you can't. You're doing it from what's going on with you. See, it can't go laterally. You have to go, and then in that same essence, you can come down. See, so if you just take a deep breath, see, and step into the bigger part of you that's the same. See, then you can be informed about it. It might be disappointing though, because you just feel the loving and the intensity of their focus, and you won't care about the content.
I'm interested in how we get there.
I just told you how to get there. Practice.
I didn't get it.
You have to practice. Yeah, so, see the party that struggles is got a habit going. So it's something you have to like struggle for. See, so like the struggle in your own life to get anything, even peace. See, so what do you do with that? Well, you appreciate the struggle and you work on the peace. So all you need to do is get peace and struggle alive at the same time, and you don't have to worry about the rest of it. So you're trying to make the struggle go away because of the peace. And all you get from that is the peace goes away because of the struggle. See, the struggle is a process. You honor it. You accept it. You compliment it. You appreciate it. At the same time, you're able to be in your peace. Then you're in a relationship to reality that can have an effect. If you hold with the peace while you're observing the struggle will show you the way out. It's just trying to fulfill itself. And you get struggling in there with it. And then creation thinks that struggling's the point. So it keeps giving you more struggle. So, oops, you almost solved that one. We'll put this other thing in. See, because you're attached to the struggle. So it's being in the peace and observing the struggle. And not just to entertain it, but to watch it. And it will start showing you how it gets resolved. Good experience in you.
This single light there.
Yeah, what's going on over there?
Feel like I can see my chest.
Okay.
Feel a little shaky.
A little shaky? Ah, that's good. It's shaking things loose. So you say, well, I see a lot of light around you. Okay, then you're seeing how I'm looking at it. You say, you wondered how somebody else was looking at it. That's how I'm looking at it, from that light. So you're seeing how I'm looking at it. See, and so what's going on over there for you? Well, a little tightness, but then some shaking. So now you got the shaky part and the tightness part. And you just have to let them dance. And then after a while you wonder, where'd the tightness go? See, or the shaking gets stronger, or it quits. See, it's not that you have to control any of that. See, you're just on a journey inside. So our problem is we keep hunkering down when we need to just go on the journey. What experiencing now? Yeah, so it's starting to move. See? So the real thing you're searching for is not how those other people were looking at it, but was communion with those people. See, with the movement of the energy, that's what you're really after, is communion. Does that make sense? Yeah, now it makes sense, right? Yeah. So now you just go with the communion. So next time we're doing that, instead of wondering what they're doing, say, I have communion. So you just go to what you're after. Well, so we practice feelings or information, not identity. Okay, so now the feelings can move. You feel the tears, the emotion. See, that's information about the light's touching someplace that wanted touching. See? So that's what then longing was what was driving the question. What are they thinking? What are they doing? How are they working their creativity? See, so again, how you're asking the question becomes another clue. So is that really what I'm after? Since I don't, see, so I was trying to explain it, we're getting it. So instead of saying, I can't get this, say, oh, there's information. I can't get this because that's not what I was asking. So we got what you're really asking, it makes perfect sense. When we got to what you're really asking,
How do we experience community?
yeah, it all started to make sense. That settled in and that synchronous activity took over. So that's where we start tracking ourselves. It's real information. Anything else? Thanks. Okay, I'm going to go on and go into a few more areas. Everybody just take a deep breath and let go a minute. Earlier I was talking about science coming in with its objectivity and kind of getting it up, extracting humanity from its superstition, and then in its narrative making up its own superstition. So it's important, I think, to value that ability to be objective, to tangibly test something, to have that methodology to test things. See, not to prove a right or wrong or to be safe, but to test. When you put those other things in there, it distorts them. So we want to test it to see if it's true. Then we can reflect back to what we were looking at and adjust it. So from the scientific perspective, there's an emerging trend to amplify the visionary side of science. You know, like an Einstein would do, or Tesla, or that quality. There was another guy, Kekulé, who had a vision that he figured out the formula for carbon, which changed the whole chemistry thing. And see, so he went from his metaphoric mind into his analytical mind and presented his colleagues with his formula. So that kind of thing appears with scientists all along. But this maybe new sense of this visionary side of it. Well, that takes the scientists. In a sense, we're all scientists because we're always doing things. Seems there's a change, and then we have a situation, we do something to change it, then we see if it changed. That's the scientific method. So in this resurgence, from my perspective, there's a kind of new, I think we'll see more of this, where there's a spirituality develops in science, where in some of our spiritual leaders may come out of the scientific community. I want to speak to two things. There's this, what's called the quantum is it dilemma? Yeah, something like that. Anyways, it looks like a dilemma that when they look at, this has to do with the observer effect, where they found out that when they measure something, it changes it. So they did this with light. They measured it one way and they measured another way, and it showed up different. So it's like the observation determined how it manifests. And so the whole quantum thing came out of that, and a lot of metaphysical philosophy and New Age stuff came out of that, which is good. They, talk about changing your reality and a bunch of other stuff. And I don't know of a reality that isn't changing. So you don't want to change how it changes. So you might as well just start observing it and let it run its course. It'll change on you. Allow it to change. Anyway, so in that observer effect, it took the whole observation thing and said, well, then your observation changes it. So that's subjective, and so what happens to your objectivity? So it raises that kind of issue when you're working with these things. And so the point I've looked at so far in terms of this lens is, the dilemma. They could find tangible reflection of when they observed subatomic particles, like small things, in the realm of quantum physics. But when they observe things out here in this classical or Newtonian world, light reflecting off of things, they said, well, we observed this and it didn't change it, which is kind of naive because it's much more complex out here. It takes, you have to really take hold of your observer to get how the observer effect is working. So that's what I've been talking about so far, is the more you align and resolve the lens of yourself, the closer you are to the frequencies that bridge the electromagnetic reality and the virtual reality. See, we bridge that inside of us in our nature. So we have the kind of observation that is playing in this. In that perspective, also then is the David Bohm came up with this. It was fascinating. I had run across that in his writing before. They had this where they set up this double slit experiment where light goes through one way, it's a particle, goes through another way, it's a waveform. So they concluded that how you observe it determines how this virtual, whatever it was, photon or unit, became tangible. But then Bohm was talking about, well, you don't really know that. It could be the photon that's looking at your measure and makes a choice. You get that? Mm-hmm. In other words, now we're dealing with consciousness having some say in this, the cause and how it. So it's looking at that, at this. So in the play between the quantum world and the classical world of science, you're looking at this work you're doing, but your work is also looking at you and deciding stuff. See, so you probably notice with people, if you have if you're angry with them, they'll probably want to quit talking to you. See, or if you're afraid of them, they'll quit talking. They want to go away. So you need to love your research. So it looks at you and says, oh, that's a nice person. I think I'll show it stuff. See, on the other side. See. Or in the visionary level, you're neutral in that, and you're participating in the greater field. So there's a dialogue where not only are you looking out at your vision, the universe is looking back at you through your vision. So we have that resolution of that dilemma, and the recognition that the electromagnetic science, tangible science, is nested in the virtual reality of this other kind of energy that's holding it and is the matrix in which it exists in. So in this correlating your correspondence between the visionary and physics, the science, and the classical science, you can begin, because you're in your being, you're able to see it. You can start working out formulas that, like when Einstein was working on equal mc squared, he just, there's a constant here, and if I put the constant in there, it all works. So is there a constant that accounts for the field of love that this thing exists in? In their calculus, do they have an image for the loving this chemical reaction they're looking at is existing in? So it has that kind of invitation to it. And the other thing that corresponds to this, it's I forgot the guy's name, but he wrote a book on it, and I apologize. He's doing this huge comparison between, so in astrophysics, they look way out, and they noticed, because of the way light bends, they discovered this dark matter and dark energy. And the only reason it's dark is it doesn't have an electrical charge. See, this matter, this tangible world, everything has an electrical charge. So you have these electrical charges that create the illusion of density. See, so then everything works. But without electrical charge, there's nothing for the light to bounce off of. Well, so when you go into these inner worlds and you look at things, light comes out of them. So there's this whole parallel thing now that gets quite exciting that, it's not, it looks like dark matter to the world of reflected light, but to the world of radiant light, it's light. So if you looked at it spiritually, it would be radiant. See? So again, the bridge to find that correspondence between those two is in our consciousness. So as scientists begin to adopt practices and visionary practices that begin to open this channel for them, they can look at this and the dark matter and see the dark matter. It's not invisible anymore, not dark, in the electrical matter, and then start to see what the relationship is, because it can be perceived through us. And so you have highly developed individuals like Sai Baba who manifest things out of nothing. Well, in his words, he's bridged that, so he can take something that's intangible and make it tangible through his way of being present with it. It's not I'm sure it's not a willing process. It's some kind of cooperative process to demonstrate that. So from my perspective, science is moving in that direction, and I wanted to, good. There's the to discover for ourselves how to begin to promote that within us, which is the point, right? I like to use the example of, you know who George Washington Carver is? Anybody?
Peanuts.
Yeah, he was this scientist, black scientist in the South. He was at the Tuskegee Institute, and he bridged the whole period just right after slavery over, right into current times. I think he died in the 40s or something. But he was a really unusual person. He made some profound discoveries, in his work with plants and synthesizing products from plants. And so when he was about, I don't know, a young man, in his early teens, I guess, or 9, someplace in there, he had this experience where this energy came over him, this divine energy, and opened up his perception. And so he had to go through quite a trajectory to get the education he needed in the tangible sciences. But what he came up with was a way to live, a way to be, and a way to practice his science. He would talk about, well, every day I go walk in the woods and connect with, speak to God and get the plan for the day. He's also, very, very humble man. He would pretty much gave his patents just over to be used to. He's credited with all the products that he take the peanut and derive a bunch of products from it. And the way he got his perspective was he would go and talk to the plant and the spirit of the plant, and he would ask what its purpose was. What was God's purpose for creation? And the plant would tell it its purpose. Well, this is your purpose. Well, so then he'd go back to the laboratory and he'd go with the chemistry, he'd synthesize the chemistry of it and make the product from that. See? Such a simple, perfect example. We've also an artist, and there's this conversation that was reported where he would make all these pigments for art out of natural products. And there was this, he was looking for this kind of purple. You need a certain purple. And so God told him that under his step there was some clay that he could synthesize that purple out of. So he went and found the clay and took it in his hand, and then the clay would tell him how to get the purple out of it. See? So that kind of relationship, was so natural to him. And when he was teaching his students, essentially he was teaching them how to be visionary scientists at the Tuskegee Institute. And so this humility and love permeated it, which seems to be the key. There was a strong sense of self, divine sense of self. It was immovable and incorruptible. But there wasn't this kind of arrogance in the world, like I'm important, or I'm great, or no, I own this patent. He pretty much made it public domain. There's even so he was in the South, and farmers around the area were having trouble. So he taught them better farming methods for the peanut. That's the good news. The bad news is they had more peanuts than they could sell. So that's why he had to go then talk to God and find out what else to do with the peanut. So they could turn it into products and make more market for it. So that's the kind of flow or synchronicity. Sometimes we create problems to get us to better solutions. So humility, daily practice, daily spiritual practice that keeps you tuned up so that you have your reference inside that's connected to your holiness, and then a keen sense of engagement with life that's realistic, it's grounded in the earth, but does not shape your personality. it existed at a time when there were a lot of negative social forces. I guess metaphorically, a lot of people were dumping rocks on black people back then. Non-stop. So you got to work with this. So he never got confused about what the world was trying to tell him he was and who God was telling him who he was. He just proceeded in that way. And would be an international consultant on these matters of science. So here's my go-to model for visionary consciousness, visionary science, visionary creativity, and how he lived his life. Okay, your turn again. Yeah. You can hardly wait.
I read an interpretation of the flower sermon, the Buddha's flower sermon, and it was just in silence. And all these masses came to hear him speak, and he would go on and on speaking. But
who's him?
The Buddha.
Okay.
So people, the throngs would come to hear him speak, but it was just silence, and he held up a flower. And nobody...
See, it was so similar, I couldn't tell you what you're talking about, Carver or Buddha.
Okay, so he held up the flower, and it was absolute silence, not a word.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, somebody burst into laughter, and it was Kashyapa, because he understood. And the meaning of it was that the Buddha had meditated on a flower, and he entered the flower, and the flower entered him. And then the flower embodied all the knowledge, his seed, his transmission. And the Kashyapa understood it, and he laughed because he saw how absurd the whole situation was. So it was transmitted to him through the flower.
Yeah, and of course the joy would take over. Yeah. It's pretty universal stuff. It's fantastic. Thanks. Anybody else?
I have a question. Me?
Yeah.
So I've been having every night the most vivid dreams, like whole cities and worlds and people and interactions. Should I pay attention, or is it just more
What?
entertainment?
You did pay attention.
Yes, but I mean, I kind of wake up and I go, wow, but I haven't been writing them down or
That's a good place to start. Wow.
write them down.
Wow.
Oh, wow, they are wow. There's so many people and cities that I've never seen, I don't think, and writing them hard.
Yeah. So it's basic. I mean, you're not having trouble remembering them. They show up. So you start out, somehow compliments life. And so you're humble before it. You appreciate it. You're excited about it if you want to be. And it gives you perspective.
Yeah, because I'm still me, aware in the dream.
Yeah, so it's a lucid thing. And you see that you're also participating on more dimensions in this physical one. So I think one thing you can do with it is give up any small thoughts about yourself. Or what's a small thought look like? Thinking you have to do something with it is a small thought. It's already done itself to you. See? So there's an awareness that's developing. But if something strikes you, you might make a note of it. Like there's always an epiphany or a bottom line that occurs at the end.
And even experiencing that beautiful interaction, as you feel the light come down in and observe, Can you describe that as your sense of wonder?
Mhm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. See, it connects it, but also there's an expansion in your heart. See, or the expansion in the heart brings the energy in. See, either way, because they're buddies. They're Castor and Pollux. They're twins. And that's the way it acts. That's the way it precipitates in us. It's through the interaction of those planes of consciousness. Yeah. So, what are you experiencing right now?
Beauty.
What?
Beauty.
Beauty. Yeah, that's your connection. And so you just let it take you over. See, so as soon as you give it permission, invite it, it gets bigger. See, because it won't inflict. It comes by invitation. And that's your essential nature. And then so you just reorganize everything around that. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Great. Yeah.
The process you were talking about before with fear, will that also work helping people through grief?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, see, grief is such an important, it's like a journey. See, because we get attached here. In a sense, our awareness of each other's divine nature, if you think it would make it easier at first, but it doesn't, because it gets mixed up with the body being there, with the emotions being there, with the history being there. You didn't get along well as attachment. And so there's an untangling. So we can transfer that sense of caring that's conditional into the deeper level, to the loving that's the essence of our relationship. So usually the grieving's over when we get the essence, or it changes into where it's a sentimental story we like to tell ourselves because it's part of our folklore, to something that defines us or defines our loss. See, as long as it's lost, we miss a piece. We took a piece with them. But we have to keep all our pieces. Plus the story of being with them, which is also, but then give their story of them being with us back to them. See, so the grief process does this in whatever way we do that. See, so by embracing it, there's something about these emotions that if we do them 100%, the wholeness comes back in. Like you can be in abject pain emotionally and do 100% and joy will well up inside. It's pretty amazing. So we move toward it instead of away from it. Because the bottom line, whatever the depth is loving. See, the hidden agenda inside of all of us is we're living our life to transform ourselves into loving. Everything we do has that agenda within it. See? And so if we just go to that agenda, it makes things simpler. So we're trying to solve something. Well, how do I use this to transform myself into loving? And in there is a recognition, from my perspective, God's will is love will have its way. Sometimes it's direct and sometimes it's a bank shot, but it's going to get its way. But it has to do it in a way that doesn't inflict on anybody's process. So you have to negotiate with it, you have to talk to it. See? But if we're too holding on to our despair, our hurt, or our vengeance, or our self-pity, we can't have the conversation with the loving. So we shut it out. So we can keep our vengeance, our despair, our revenge. But from the loving, we have a conversation with it from the loving. not try to mediate it from within itself. So we have, again, it's like observe ourselves imagining. It's like, see, so you can have the, you have to move to a place that can have the conversation. And then there's an integrity to the issue because it has something in it. See, it has, as we unpack it, it has information, it leads to other things, but also in it is some loving that got caught in the distortions, trying to actualize itself. And once you hit that level of it, it's just over. See? Yeah. It's one of those conversations that's leading me to kind of this high place. It's nice. Anything else? We're going to finish with a meditation, but we have time for anything you might think up or I might think of. Yeah.
So, in this time of multidimensional greater access, in my view, many others' view, how can people navigate that in better ways?
Well, we'll know when it's over because we've been through it. But yeah, that's another piece of it. That's nice. Thanks for that question. So maybe it's a little bit like the metaphor of you're drowning, but you change it to treading water. What might be the simplest way to look at it? You get that metaphor? The water's stormy, you're struggling, you're sinking, you're taking on water. That's drowning. Or you can sink to the depths and come back up. Or you can just tread water. So you float. But to float, you have to have a still place. And so that's probably the essential piece. Is staying in the still place while chaos. It's the old time we referred to the chaos. We all contribute. You know, we're all contributing to the way reality is. We're looking at that from a place of our ego, our survival, our making our way, our preserving our way, our keeping our family safe. So it's from that ego position. And so the ego likes to do a lot of shame and blame, or find somebody whose fault it is. And that's a reality. So you play in that field. So from that perspective, if you can change the perspective of, the chaos is going on, but it's not your fault. It's still your responsibility. Seems unfair, right? It's not, none of this is your fault, because we're not doing shame and blame. Shame and blame is like, cutting a limb off or shooting yourself in the foot, as they used to say in the Wild West. You can't draw too fast or the gun goes off before you pull it out and you shoot yourself in the foot. So we need some regulation with firearms, because you're always shooting yourself in the foot. That's what they ought to approach it that way. The reason we need to make gun control is you keep shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah, well, anyway, nice thought. So in that building, that place, that still place, a few attitudes are helpful. One is that everything is here to serve you. Everything is attempting in some form to give you an opportunity to find a new way to love yourself. That's the spiritual level. See? Now, well, that's kind of hard because there's so much crookedness and so much chaos, and even uncovering more like all the time, there's a new thing somebody did that they're outing, and they're losing their job or getting convicted. I think that's a good sign because it means it's all coming out. So what looks like more chaos, well, like I mentioned in the description, chaos infers a higher level of organization. Well, you have to get to the chaos to get to the, so you have to trust the higher or level of organization is not getting out of the chaos, it's causing the chaos. So it's something deeper and emergent. Be curious about that. Like, what's deeper and emergent? What's all this surfacing of craziness and people getting caught in this violence and tribalism and hate, and here you're trying to base yourself in loving. So there's that level, and so you're holding something in relationship to it. So if you're going to exercise your responsibility, you have to not be in denial about the craziness, but then also not be in denial about the holiness. The only place we have to make sense out of anything is going to be through our own loving, through our own center. It's the only authority we have that's going to tell us the truth as it relates to us, and then as it relates to what's going on. So it's like sometimes it's like juggling, though, because you have all this pushing at you, and any place that what's going on in the world right now can get to you is a place you haven't orphaned inside of you haven't visited yet. So it's not fixing something that's broken. It's finding which room inside the orphan's hanging out in and showing up. Then the chaos, the controversy may still be here, but it's not going to push your button. In other words, you can meet it with your strength, not your reaction. So the first step is always using it to your advantage. In other words, using it to bring yourself into more loving and to resolve your relationship to it. First step. Second step is then once you've done that, it'll be very clear if you need to take an action out here. See, and there are a lot of actions like vote, protest marches can be great fun. So to do it as recreation and to make a point. It's like collective voting marches. Anyway, keep it simple. Yeah. You probably tell people this all the time.
I present on Friday, so I'll have a different answer, or similar.
Well, maybe a different reality on Friday, so.
Probably.
See, once you're able to make a distinction inside you between your loving and whatever issue you have, and observe it, the issue will take care of itself.
Say that again.
When you can, I don't know if I can say that again or not. when you're conscious of your love and your center, and can, any issue you have, just your awareness will resolve it. Usually we try to analyze it, fix it, change ourselves, judge it, think something's wrong with it. No. It's just another aspect of you that's trying to actualize itself. Every issue is something you created and it's trying to fulfill itself. The loving accelerates that. So it's a practice in identity. So you're using your own issue, your own misunderstanding about yourself to reflect back to you the truth about yourself, which is usually the opposite. It's designed to fulfill itself. The reason it came back to you is you started it. See, so anything you send out in the creation is going to come back to you no matter which lifetime you did it in. And so you have to be there and read it. prodigal son or daughter comes back to you, and you welcome it. You love it. And once you resolve that, then you can see if you can be of service, which usually involves you loving going out ahead of you and then deciding, which discussion you want to have. Anything else? Or should we just finish with a meditation and well, I guess that answered my question. Just close our eyes so we're reflecting inward to that. And calling forward that deeper frequency of ourself. The nice thing about the holiness that resides within you is it always resides within you. And so it's your first teacher. If you have an outer teacher, that teacher will also refer you back to that inner teacher, and they'll amplify each other. So become aware of your breathing, become aware of the flow of energy through you as we described earlier. As we breathe out into life, as we breathe in and up through us into the high place, into the depth of the earth, and that cosmic heartbeat that lives within us. And within that depth of your heart is this connection to all other loving, all other life, all other beingness in this world. So as we use our own divine authority to bring in even a greater loving into that place and share it. And then as we breathe in and bring in the frequencies of life, we purify them through this divine grace that we've invited from our own higher transcendental levels. So this becomes a practice of service, where we have our witness, and we have our standard of loving, which is a measure. So we look out at what's in the world, and we measure it to the loving. And that gives a distinction, but it also brings an awareness into the action in the world of the loving, so it convicts itself and becomes the loving. It's hard to do this all the time, but we can do it in our meditation, where we sit in that deep place, the divine presence inside of us, that's us, in our holy state. And we hold satsang with the world and bring grace to life. Bring grace to our relationships, bring grace to the world as we find it, bring grace to our adversaries, bring grace to our friends and our lovers, automatically, just by holding with this audience within ourselves. and focusing out at your own rate. Take your time. I appreciate it afterward. Just give me my physical space. Afterwards, we can talk, but give me my physical space. I appreciate that. So now we're back enough, I guess I can do some commercials. we have a new book out. There's a few up in the office. They're also on Amazon. I have a flyer back there on classes that you can get on the way out. And if we just write, we're at our website up here. So my commercial self is satisfied. That's a pretty good one.
If you haven't signed for your CEUs, the notepad is outside. You just have to sign once.
Well, it's been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.